but it's also so freeing and such an awakening to understand that your faith does not have to be polished. It does not have to be that neat version, the predictable version, the version that made everything make sense. If you're tired of living in survival mode and questioning your worth and faith after divorce and want simple steps to heal, drop that shame and guilt, and rebuild your confidence, you're in the right place. Hey, I'm Lori Ann, certified Christian life coach and midlife divorce mom of 2. I learned the secret of how to heal after divorce and rebuild my life through faith-based strategies that changed everything. And if you're ready to remember who you truly are, rediscover your purpose in midlife, love well again, and care for your body and soul, welcome to the club. You're in the right room. Hey girl. Well, before we dive in today, I want to personally invite you to join the Midlife Comeback Club. If you're a Christian woman trying to heal after divorce and rebuild your life with faith, confidence, and support, this is exactly why I created this space. Inside the Midlife Comeback Club, you'll find my transformational 90-day program. You will get weekly live coaching calls with me, your certified Christian life coach, and a community of women who truly understand what this season feels like. So if you're tired of surviving and ready to start your comeback, I want you to click the link in the show notes and come join us. All right, so let's get into today's episode. Today, we're going to be talking about something that sounds so simple on paper, but feels incredibly hard in real life. How do you trust God when your life has completely fallen apart? How do you trust Him when the marriage you prayed for did not survive? And how do you trust God when you begged Him to fix it, right? Restore it, to change it, and it still ended? How do you trust Him with that? And how do you trust God when you're left standing in the wreckage of a life you never imagined for yourself? This topic is on my heart because I know so many Christian women who struggle with this silently. They still love God, they still believe in Him, but if they're being really honest, their trust feels shaky. And they feel guilty about that. Because in church culture, right, we hear phrases like, just trust God, God has a plan for your life, have faith, even when it's difficult, and lean not on your own understanding. And yes, those things are absolutely true. But when your heart is broken and your life feels like it just blew up in front of your eyes, those words can feel more frustrating than comforting. I know, because you're not asking for some cute Christian cliche, right? You're asking, how do I trust God when I don't understand what He allowed in my life? How do I keep believing when my prayers seemed unanswered? How do I hold on to faith when I feel so disappointed and I'm so hurt and honestly a little angry, if I'm being really honest? If that's where you are, I want you to know this. You're not a bad Christian because this is hard. You're not faithless because you have some questions about why this happened. And you're not failing spiritually because trust feels harder now than it used to. You're a woman who's been through deep, deep pain. And today I want to walk you through what trusting God after divorce actually looked like for me, and how you can also begin rebuilding that trust, one simple, honest little step at a time. Because I remember a season after my divorce where I felt so confused, really confused about my faith. Not because I stopped believing in God, but because I didn't understand Him. I didn't understand at all why the things unfolded the way they did, why my marriage ended in this way. I didn't understand why the marriage fell apart. I didn't understand why the prayers I prayed seemed to go unanswered. And if I'm really being honest with you, I had so much hurt in my heart, but I was still trying to show up. I was still praying in my own way. I still tried to do the so-called right Christian things. But underneath all of that, there was this ache and this like real uneasiness, this disappointment that I had. And I think mostly it was an internal question that I didn't always know how to say out loud, which was simply, God, where are you? And I think a lot of women feel that after divorce. They feel like they're supposed to trust God more than ever during this horrific season that they're walking through. But what they actually feel is disoriented because that life that they thought God was blessing is gone. It's no longer. And now they're left trying to reconcile their pain with their faith. And that can be a really difficult thing to do. I had to come to a place where I stopped pretending. I was okay with God, thinking that I was okay with God when I really wasn't. Not because I wanted to disrespect him, but because real trust could not be rebuilt on fake honesty. And I had to bring him all of the messy parts that I didn't want to bring to him. I brought him the grief. I brought him the confusion about my thoughts. I brought him my anger. I brought him all of the disappointment I was carrying. And the fear I had now as I walked into my future during that season alone with my 2 little kids. And what I learned in that season is that God is not intimidated by your honesty. He would truly rather, have your real heart than your polished performance of the heart you think that he wants, you to present to him. And that was the beginning of how learning how to trust him again worked for me. It was not with this picture perfect faith that I thought I had to have. It was really with honest faith and bringing him my real raw questions about what had happened. So let's talk about this a little more. And I want to walk through some steps today with you, okay? The number one step I want to start with is being honest with God about what you actually feel, not about what you think he wants you to tell him, okay? That's not what he wants. He wants to help you work through this. And this is the first step because a lot of women skip right over this. They think, oh no, I'm good, God. Everything is cool. I don't need, to tell you what I'm really feeling or how I'm really feeling about him or the situation or anything else. I just need to give you like the picture perfect scriptures that I know I'm supposed to be saying to you. They think, trusting God means pretending that they're not disappointed. They think faith means pushing down all of that anger, hiding all of that confusion that you're going through, and just slapping some Bible verse over the pain. But that's not trust. That's avoidance. You're avoiding what you're truly feeling. And if you have read the Psalms, David was brutally honest. He cried out, he questioned, he lamented, he wrestled with his faith. And God did not reject him for that. So if you want to rebuild trust, you've really got to start with honesty. You've got to be real with him. Be like, God, I don't understand this. I'm really hurt. I am super angry. I thought you were going to do something different, God. I want to trust you, but right now I'm really struggling. And that kind of honesty is not rebellion towards Jesus. That's how you build your relationship with him. He wants us to come to him with our honest truth about what we're going through. And so what this might look like for you is journaling, just that raw, honest prayer. Or maybe it's just sitting in silence, and saying the real thing instead of that spiritual, quote unquote, spiritual thing that you think we're supposed to be telling him. And maybe it's just crying out loud in the car one day when you're by yourself and finally letting all of your truth come out to him. because God can really work with honesty, but he can't do much with pretending. Number two, I want you to separate God's character from your circumstances. This one is huge because when your life falls apart, it's so easy to let your circumstances define what you believe about God. So if the marriage ended, right, maybe God failed me. If I'm hurting this much, maybe God abandoned me. If my prayers weren't answered the way I wanted, maybe God doesn't really care about me. But girl, your circumstances are real, but they are not the full story of God's divine character. So just because life, is painful, as we know it can be during seasons, does not mean that God is cruel. Just because you feel abandoned, maybe at the moment, does not mean he left you. And just because you don't understand him does not mean he stopped doing or being good. And this is where trust really gets rebuilt for women, not by understanding everything, but by anchoring yourself in what is true about God, even when your life makes no sense whatsoever at the moment. Believing God is still faithful. God is still near to the brokenhearted, as he says. God is still kind. God is still trustworthy. God is still present, even when you can't see or hear him in this difficult season. So I want you to make a list, okay, of what is true about God, not what you're feeling, but what is true. For example, right? God is close to the brokenhearted, like we said. God does not waste pain. God is faithful, right? Even when I feel weak. God is not done with my story. God sees me. God loves me. And when your emotions are loud, these truths have to become so much louder. And number three, I want you to stop demanding clarity before obedience. Now, this one might sting a little if we're being real, but it matters, okay? Because sometimes we think, as soon as I understand why this happened, then I will trust God. Right? As soon as I feel peace, then I will move forward. Or as soon as I get closure, then I'll obey. But trust often begins before the clarity does. Trust, just says, I don't understand God, but I'll still take the next little step. And that next step you take, maybe super little, maybe tiny, but take it. You can get out of bed for the day. You can go to counseling. You can set a new boundary for yourself. You can go join that group you've been talking about joining. You can open the Bible again. You can pray that messy, honest prayer. You can take care of your body and soul. You can say no to all the things that are draining you. You can say yes to what is healing you. And trust is often built in those small, obedient actions, not these huge, dramatic moments. So you want to ask yourself here, what is the next faithful step in front of me right now? What can you do right now that will be one tiny step closer to the direction you want to take? Not 10 steps from now, okay? Not thinking too far ahead, not 6 months from now, just the next one. And that's how your trust will grow over time. Number four, I want you to remember, okay, that trust is built. It's not forced. Sometimes we try to take it into our own hands and try to do things our own way. And we force, the square peg into the round hole. And a lot of women shame themselves because they think they should instantly trust God again, just because they know that it's biblical and know that they need to be doing that right away in order to move forward. But trust, whether it's in relationships or in faith, it's always built over time. So you don't have to force yourself into some fake spiritual confidence overnight. You can build trust slowly, through your time with God. If you're spending 5 or 10 minutes to start off with in the mornings, that's a great place to start. Grow it over time. Before you know it, maybe 6 months or a year, you can spend 20 or 30 minutes in the morning doing a devotional or journaling. Through honest prayer, through honest conversations with Jesus. by bringing him all of your messy thoughts and messy things that are going on and your questions. He wants that, through noticing how he's providing for you, even in the middle of the mess, through remembering, how he has carried you before and the miracles that he's already done in your life, right? Sometimes we forget so quickly all of the miracles he's already done. And there's no reason he will not do them again. He will. Through seeing his faithfulness in small, little ways. If you look for those, you will find them. I know we don't stop to take that moment sometimes to go find those little miracles and those little moments where he is being faithful because we're, thinking about all the bad things that we're going through right now. But there are those little moments of light if we look for them. And maybe right now, your trust looks like, God, I don't fully understand you, but I'm willing to stay near. And that counts for something. Or maybe your trust sounds like, Lord, help my unbelief that I'm struggling with right now. That counts too. And maybe your trust is just refusing to walk away completely, because you could do that, but you're not. And that counts for something. So start noticing evidence of God's faithfulness right now. And it doesn't even have to be in the big, huge miracles. It's just like in the daily bread, in the daily little things like, oh my goodness, thank you for helping me get my kids up and get them to school this morning. Thank you for food on the table for dinner tonight. Thank you that I got more than 1 hour of sleep last night, whatever it might look like right now, right? Thank him for the strength that you had today, the peace you felt for just 5 minutes out of your day, the friend who randomly texted you at just the right time, that verse you read with your 5 minutes with him this morning that hit differently today, made a lot more sense to you. The moment, you didn't fall apart the way you used to. Maybe you took a step back in a situation you were in today and breathed and paused and just took a moment and didn't react maybe the way you would have reacted 6 months ago. So trust gets rebuilt when you learn to recognize his presence again, even though they may be little small moments throughout your day. And number 5, let your faith become real, not more polished. And this might be my favorite point of everything I'm talking to you about today, because after divorce, a lot of women lose that polished version of their faith. I know I did. It was like everything went out the window after my divorce. I used to think I was perfect, that type A, that I could control everything. And kind of like the divorce was just the nail in the coffin that said, Lorianne, you are definitely not perfect. And things are not always going to go as you imagine. I am not the driver in the driver's seat. I'm very much in the passenger seat, and God has definitely, Jesus, take the wheel, as they say. That was very eye-opening to me as somebody who thought I had a lot of control over a lot of things. And it's a rude awakening, I think, when that happens after divorce. But it's also so freeing and such an awakening to understand that your faith does not have to be polished. It does not have to be that neat version, the predictable version, the version that made everything make sense, right? And honestly, that can feel terrifying, but it can also become something so beautiful. Because maybe what God is doing now is not giving you a shinier, flashy faith. Maybe he's giving you a real one. And that's what you want. A faith that has wrestled, that has questioned, a faith that has cried, a faith that has survived so much disappointment and still chooses to stay. That kind of faith is so strong. And not because it's loud, but because it's tested. And that faith is priceless. It's so beautiful. You just, I can't explain how it's one of those moments in my life where it was just the most freeing moment to know that I could wrestle with so many things that were difficult throughout my life and still come out the other side. And my faith was stronger than ever before because it was tested. And if that's where you are right now, where your faith feels less polished but more honest, you are not behind. You may actually be closer to God than you've ever been. So I want you to stop judging your faith by how polished it looks, okay? I want you to ask instead, am I being honest with God? Am I staying open? Am I still willing to let Him lead me instead of me leading Him? And am I taking the next faithful step without really knowing the outcome, but trusting fully in Him? That is real faith. So, if this episode spoke to your heart today, and if you've been quietly struggling to trust God again after divorce, I want to invite you to take the next step and join us inside the Midlife Comeback Club. This is the space that I created for Christian women who are healing after divorce and want support. They want coaching. They want truth. They want community as they rebuild their lives. I have my 90-day transformational course inside the membership that has already changed so many women's lives so quickly. I have live weekly Q&A calls with me, Lorianne, your certified Christian life coach, every single week where you can bring your questions, bring your thoughts, and we talk through those. You do not have to figure all of this out by yourself. And I don't want you to feel like you're alone. You don't have to keep wrestling in silence. And you don't have to wait until your faith feels perfect to get support. Okay? This is your personal invitation to come join us. So click the link below in the show notes to learn more about the Midlife Comeback Club. And if this is the season you're in, let me leave you with this, okay? Trusting God after divorce doesn't mean you have all the answers. It means you're just willing to keep walking with Him even when life does not make any sense yet. That is faith, that is courage, and that may be the very place your comeback begins. So if I don't see you in the Midlife Comeback Club, I'll see you right back here in the next episode. Thanks for joining me. Hey girl, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And if so, would you take 30 seconds and share it with a woman who might really need it right now? Also, please leave me a quick review over on Apple Podcasts. It truly helps this show reach more women who are ready for their divine comeback. And until next time, keep choosing faith over fear, and I will meet you back here next week for another episode.